welcome to the full audience. This is very exciting for me. I'm so looking forward to the topic we're bringing you today, fueling growth with smart investments in data and analytics. And I'm also happy to share that this is Sigmoid's inaugural Fireside Chat. So I feel particularly honored to be a part of this. So we've been prepping over the last several weeks, and we've got a really great panel. A couple of things just before we get started, and Lokesh will remind me if I miss anything. You know, typical fireside chat, we've got a few questions prepared to get the conversation going, but obviously this is really information sharing to the benefit of our audience. So we encourage you to ask questions. Very exciting. We've already got several audience questions before the event's even started. So there will be a time where we'll start taking Q&A from the audience, but don't hesitate. You can enter questions as you have them, and we'll get back to them a little bit later in the hour. Lokesh, I'm trying to remember, was there anything else that you wanted me to share in the beginning?
I think we're all good. There's a Q&A button that all participants could see at the bottom. If they want to have any questions, they can just put that on the Q&A. Kathleen and team can see that, and then they'll pick it up.
On the Q&A. Yep, perfect. Great. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. I am Kathleen. Well, you see on the screen Kathleen Dooley. That's actually my maiden name. I am now Kathleen Maley. We women often have to struggle with those name changes, but you can find me either way. My background is in finance. So I've been in finance for the last 15 years, but I've always considered myself a statistician first. So I really live and breathe data, and most importantly, helping business leaders aim for higher targets and get there faster through the application of data and analytics. So what I'd like to do is start by introducing the rest of the panel, actually have the panel introduce themselves, and then we'll launch into questions. So Kazi, because of where you are on my screen, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself first?
Sure, thanks Kathleen. So I'm Kazi Zaman. I've spent my entire career working on various parts of the big data and analytics stack. At Siebel and at Oracle, I worked on Siebel Analytics, which was a BI platform and applications. At Yahoo, I worked on technologies like Hadoop. At EMC, I worked on Greenplum MPP database. And most recently at Electronic Arts, I was working on a core data platform as well as applications to extract value from petabytes of gamer and gameplay data. Thank you. Looking forward to this. Really looking forward to this panel.
Haroon?
Hi, thanks, Kathleen. Hi, everyone. My name is Haroon Abbu. I'm the Vice President of Advanced Analytics, IoT, and Data Services here at Bell & Howell. For those who don't know Bell & Howell is one of the largest technology-enabled service organizations with around-the-clock customer service, technical support centers, as well as IoT-driven analytics, advanced remote monitoring, and diagnostic capabilities. We also deliver retail click and collect and pharmacy click and collect solutions, factory intelligence, consumer packaging automation, as well as production mail automation. I'm currently leading Bell & Howell's Innovation Lab and Center of Excellence to build analytics and service capabilities powered by IoT, machine learning, and advanced analytics that drive service efficiencies and generate new revenue stream for us. I look forward to this lively conversation.
Excellent, Haroon, thank you. Prabhu.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm Prabhu Chandrasekhar. I'm a director for Data Foundation at Advanced Auto Parts. Well, Data Foundation is a broad term. I'm responsible for the cloud strategy, data analytics across our data lake formation, data integration through Kafka and other means, tools, processes, data engineering, architecture. I also support lines of business in terms of end-to-end solutions. So that's, I've been in Advanced for about a couple of years. Prior to that, I spent some time at NetApp and then over a decade at Cisco. The last 10, 12 years of my career has been mostly on the data side, leading BI teams, and then gradually moving into more tech stack, architecture, and platform. I still have a passion for that, and some of these conversations are going to be centered today around that. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Sangeeth?
Hi, I'm Sangeeth Ponathil. I work at Pizza Hut. I am a senior director on the technology team, and I have a focus on enterprise data services as well as cloud strategy. And I am a true retailer at heart. I grew up in technology, but I've been in retail all my life. Spent several years at Target and then moved over to the restaurant industry and found my way to Pizza Hut. In addition to delivering technology solutions, my passion is about, since we're a consumer-facing organization, my passion is always about trying to unlock business value using data and trying to see, so I'm very interested in understanding consumer behavior, customer behavior. So, and I'm trying to kind of bridge the divide between how can data get us closer to understanding and anticipating what customers want. Happy to be here.
Great. And last but not least, co-founder of Sigmoid, Lokesh.
Hello, my name is Lokesh Anand. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Sigmoid. Over 10 years of experience, last 7 years building Sigmoid into a leading global data solutions provider. Prior to this, I worked for Procter & Gamble. And we're delighted to have this panel and about 60 folks now, and I hope more will trickle in as we get started. Looking forward, Kathleen.
Fantastic. And you know, one of the things I'm most excited about for today's panel is the range of experience in a variety of industries. And I think our first question is really the money question. And again, for the audience, we really did work hard to make sure that we were talking about things that you could take back to your own organization. So Haroon, I'm going to start with you if I can. The big question. In light of the new economic realities, how can my organization use data and analytics to reshape the business, to manage risks that we're currently facing, and even more importantly, maybe identify emerging opportunities?
That's a great question. I think it's a very timely question. I want to start off by saying, Bell & Howell, as some of you may know, has a rich history. Founded back in 1907 as a pioneer in movie projectors, camera, and film. It has pivoted several times in its history to industrial automation, to equipment manufacturing. And more recently, we reinvented the company as a services first company. As a service focused organization, we are rapidly undergoing digital transformation, and we are investing heavily in tools and technology and training to help our customers increase efficiency, reduce costs, and improve our customer experience. So the foundation of the technologies we started to implement a couple of years ago is actually helping us during these unprecedented times. The power of data science and algorithms are at the foundation of our remote monitoring and remote repair technology. Our vision is to help companies derive business value out of data, translate that business problem into language of algorithms and analysis, and then translate that analytics back into the language of our technicians, customers, and management. So the winning formula for us, especially since we're in the industrial services space, is to help understand what happened, predict what will happen, and then prescribe the best course of action with real-time information to our technician. And the key to it is to identify problematic hardware, problematic equipment before anything even goes wrong, or before it causes downtime. So we look at opportunities created by analytics under two buckets: intrinsic value and extrinsic value. Intrinsic value is value gained by improving our service efficiencies. It could be saving an hour of technician time per shift, or giving that extra hour of uptime to the customer. So all that adds up when you have 1,000+ technicians and the customers. And then the second thing is extrinsic benefits. As we add more value proposition to extrinsic value, it's the value gained by customers in using real-time insights to run their businesses better. For us, this is a real monetizable opportunity and avenue for additional revenue streams. So those are the two ways we look at the value of data analytics to our organization.
Yeah. Prabhu, I know you had some thoughts on this question as well. Do you want to jump in there? You're on mute right now.
I should realize that. Okay, thank you. So absolutely, Kathleen. I mean, one thing that we should, people are aware in these, what we call unprecedented situations and circumstances, COVID has provided a significant challenge in how companies operate. On the flip side, there are companies that are considered essential services, and they keep their stores and open, especially in the US and Canada. Some could be due to, or they have, even if they're open, it could be reduced hours in certain areas because of the hotspots and identification by local and federal authorities. But having that and gives you a good perspective of how people are buying, right? Especially in the US and Canada. You have various means of that people are getting rebate checks, tax rebates that are coming back, or people not driving enough in advanced auto parts. For people who are not familiar, we are an aftermarket auto parts reseller. We don't manufacture, we resell. So people not driving enough doesn't mean cars don't need fixes. Car staying in the garage and in your driveway for long extended period of times could also lead to things that need to be fixed. People tend to fix more now. People have, many people being out of job or being working from home, have more time to look at these things. So this has kicked off some very different buying patterns. And now identifying these things is important for us to say, how do we, certain parts of the weather can alter certain things. How do we address our shipments to those areas specifically that require certain things? The data and analytics has been, particularly around the inventory and our sales, has helped us drive our parts moving patterns according to these things. So it's a mixture of the circumstances plus what we built over time has really positioned us to derive in what Haroon just mentioned, the extrinsic value. How do we position ourselves to drive this capability forward?
Yeah, so it sounds like it's also a combination of where do we focus? So we could be focusing on dozens of different things, but right now, if we know we need to create efficiency, it's sort of narrowing down, and focusing on the immediate need. Doing that doesn't just happen. So Kazi, here's a question for you. Let's talk about investing versus divesting. Is it time to put a pause, or is it time to really go all in and on things like the cloud?
Great question. I think the cloud cloud question in particular is, I think, a really interesting one, because I think that the impact of what the current situation is with coronavirus is very, very different depending upon which industry you're in. Like if you're in the entertainment business, be it Netflix, be it a gaming company like Electronic Arts, what's actually happened is that loads have increased. You actually need more capacity. Whereas if you were in anything connected with transportation or hospitality, you have the opposite situation where you actually need less capacity. So being able to seamlessly have elasticity in your infrastructure and have the ability to spin up capacity as needed or spin down capacity as needed to get appropriate ROI on the infrastructure investments you make is actually critical. And I think the interesting thing about the situation is nobody quite knows how it's going to evolve. So I think the thing we do know is that you're really going to need to be nimble as you move forward. I think the other thing which has happened is it's not just the infrastructure which has also changed. It's who are your customers, and there's an influx, especially of people coming in the entertainment business. The people who aren't traditional gamers, who have more time, who are coming in and playing. Now, from a customer perspective, you really want to understand, is the behavior of this new incoming cohort the same as your existing players? Is the kind of content they respond to the same? Do they monetize or do they behave differently within the game? And the key to understanding this new customer behavior is really data and analytics. So given the need to be nimble, agile, and making quick decisions on how to adjust your business, I would argue that this is the time to be both investing in infrastructure like cloud, as well as the right kinds of projects which allow you to make business decisions, quickly and well. So that's my point of view on that.
Yeah, yeah. Prabhu?
Yep, certainly. I mean, again, this cloud journey for us started a couple of years ago, and it's to like what Kazi mentioned. If you are at this time and you're actually headed down that path, it's perfect. Or if you have an opportunity to accelerate and go all cloud at this time, you're absolutely positioned for great levels of optimization and eventually success for your organization. And we were in that journey for a year and a half. Like I said, I joined the company with that in mind, and I'm delivering that value, hopefully delivering that value. And so as we progress and we are able to remove our footprint from our on-premises systems, trying to be more cloud-centric and getting the scalability and elasticity that Kazi expanded upon. It also provides the freedom to integrate with the other cloud systems. We are actually transforming our whole company. So it's just not data. So it could be systems that are being lift and shift in the cloud, upgraded, or we picking SaaS solutions. What better when you are also in the cloud and able to connect those things? And collectively from them and from the data standpoint, if you're able to provide those cost savings to the company and speed to time to market, improve the time to market significantly, I mean, you would hit the right strides now. But one thing we should remember is going all cloud doesn't mean doing the right way all the time. You have to be cautious about how you develop your strategy. Otherwise, quickly cloud could go out of hand and expensive. It can be much more expensive if you don't do the right things. So having the level of governance and prudence when you spend and develop solutions is important. And that's why we look to partners constantly to help us build that capability.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but you and Kazi both mentioned it, the idea that, hey, if you've had a head start on the cloud, you're in a really good position to be able to lever up or lever down. Prabhu, since you brought up your ongoing strategy, I want to stick with you for the next question. Again, trying to get really specific for the audience as you are entering the 2021 planning cycle. How is this current situation impacting the way you're thinking about your data initiatives and planning?
So right when this hit, around the March, April timeframe, like everyone, we become very cautious about, because you didn't know what was going to happen. Everything was shut down March 16th, March 19th. Pretty much all states in the US shut down around that timeframe. And then the immediate knee-jerk reaction from people is, yeah, I'm not going to buy anything. I got to protect, or I got to stock my essentials at home and do nothing more. As people start getting adjusted to the new reality, which we think is going to be the new norm moving forward, you don't know, you start seeing the patterns evolving. That gives you the comfort. It can be invested in other things. So the immediate ask was to reduce or look at how we can accelerate a certain initiatives and or pause or slow down the others. As time has progressed over the last 3-4 months, we become a little more comfortable in the situation. That doesn't mean we can go all in, but our planning has become a little more data oriented. We are deriving data from our own self. How do we accelerate, and what are the things that we can position ourselves for 2021? Our fiscal year runs very close to the calendar year. So it aligns this, what we call a planning cycle. And the key thing is our transformation initiatives are still ongoing, and we are able to support those. Now they have an opportunity to go big bang as well. So this gives us the freedom to say, okay, this is what I need to do to support those. Plus, what do I need to do to build foundationally that I can scale? Definitely has altered our perspective on how we spend and what are the areas we invest in.
Yeah. Sangeeth, I want to pull you in. I haven't heard your voice yet, and I know that we talked a lot about this in prep. So what are your thoughts?
I think it's a great situation because on one hand, I think like Prabhu said, it has made people very cautious, but at the same time, it does present a great opportunity. The landscape of if anybody that is consumer facing or actually servicing somebody else, the COVID has kind of made everyone sit up, and I'd be willing to bet that in all the offices of the senior leadership, people are really trying to figure out what's the next wave that COVID has brought that we need to be thinking about and how we do business differently. Along those lines, I think I agree that they're trying to use data more effectively and start using that data for 2021 planning. From my perspective, I would want to say I think everyone's being cautiously optimistic in the sense there's definitely an appetite to try to be smart about investments for 2021, but at the same time, there's also an opportunity to accelerate, for instance, digital experiences, right? Consumers want more and more, or customers want more and more services at their door or at their doorstep, or to have the luxury of choosing where they can get that service, right? So people are using data to really try to dig into customers' minds and try to understand how can they make that happen. So to me, I would summarize it as organizations are being cautiously optimistic in terms of data investments for 2021.
Sangeeth, I've got another question for you in a slightly different vein. Before I go there, I want to address an audience question that came in. And anybody is welcome to jump on this one. So, get your trigger finger ready. I think this is a great one. This is an individual who's asking about, he was brought in to run some data and analytics, right? Discover some insights. And he's facing a group of business partners who each have their own data system on which they're comfortable working. And so how do you address the adoption of a common data service or common data platform, sort of the culture change that's required to get these business leaders from what they're comfortable with to a common solution that ultimately is bigger benefit, but there is some work to convert them to this new way of operating. Who would like to take that one?
I can take a stab at that, Kathleen. So basically, this is an age-old question, right? All different systems and getting data from multitude of systems, whether it is old legacy system or some kind of a customer-facing system, et cetera, et cetera. So it all starts with the strategy. And what is the analytics strategy for the company? Where is it actually in the structure of the company? Where is it located? Is it set up as an innovation lab? Is it a center of excellence? Is it a profit center? Are you in a supporting role? So I think as a company, a forward-looking company has to determine what should the structure be. Once that is determined, and if it has senior management, executive level support, then the question of, okay, are you going with a uniform data lake type of a solution or a company-wide enterprise database system or not becomes kind of mute, right? And then you need a champion to head that initiative. So if there is a data analytics executive who has the support of the CEO to make this type of change, forward-looking change, then I think, that question is irrelevant, but it should start at the top. You should understand the vision. What is that you're trying to do with the data? And then get buy-in from the executive team. And then it has to be, when it comes to the data warehouse situation, it has to be a top-down decision. I know a lot of things are bottom up, but in this case, that has to be defined at the strategy level.
And if I can double click on what Haroon said, right? Definitely, I mean, you have the buy-in and you want to go further. Let's say you've got that and you want to go further. One of the things actually we're working on is, data lake is one thing that we've definitely built, or everyone has talked about it. It's been the mantra for the last several years, but few have been successful, and few have been successful in a reasonable amount of time. Because the clear thing is, data lake becomes a data swarm. How do you prevent those things? But having said that, now you got to identify, what are you trying to do with this data? Is the data coming real time? Is it coming at a specific frequency, or is it required at a specific frequency, or needs real time? You identify which line of business you are in or which industry you are in, and what value you get by providing that capability for that thing. And that's why some of the capabilities that we are trying to enable is Kafka. And you can build those common components in that layer. So definitely, I mean, start at the top, figure out where you are, and then go down to, there are plenty of solutions available. This is one of them.
Hey, Kathleen, do you mind if I share my perspective on this?
Great.
So if I understand the question, it was more like, hey, we have all these different data sources. Obviously, we see value in trying to centralize it. How do we get there, right? That's kind of the goal. And from our experience, I think it's been like, there's a technology solve to it, which unfortunately is the easier part of the equation. The harder part of the equation is, how do you get funding and backing from the business to help you get there? And it's kind of the whole classic iceberg analogy where, the tip of the iceberg is what the business sees, but what's underneath, which is the plumbing, is what they don't get to see. The way we've been able to get some success, and it's an ongoing journey, it doesn't get you there overnight. You can have the best slides and go and say, like, by doing this, you can get there. But unless you are able to lock into explicit business value, I don't know if it'll be easy. So at least the way where we've been able to make progress is we've been looking at projects and initiatives where we are able to try to build that business value by centralizing data and then showing it back to the business. And therefore, you're kind of leading the horse to the trough, if you will. And then the next time they come around, they want to add, and it's a pull instead of a push. So to me, that's my perspective.
Yeah. And I have an opinion on this as well, because I'm really passionate about culture change and transformation, and it's a very human problem. And I don't think there's one tactic that works. I think it is the combination of tactics. I think it's the top-down support. I think it's creating some of that pull. Guaranteed business leaders are asking a ton of questions, and I think if I only knew X, then I could. Well, I can only give you X if you're willing to do the work of learning a new system, and I'll do my best to make it as simple as possible, but, no pain, no gain, and it is absolutely a human problem. It's a culture change, and, there's no easy way around it, but the payoff is there. And so it's always making sure we show the value of the effort that the business will have to put in as well as they learn a new way of operating. Sangeeth, I said I had a question for you. Talk a little bit about how leaders are now thinking about their A team. So we've talked a lot about sort of conceptually, what is the work we need to do? Does this current environment change maybe the type of skill we need to bring in, how we bring them in, how we allow groups to form and storm in now almost for all of us a fully remote way? What are your thoughts on the talent element of all of this?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the situation, as unfortunate as it is across the world, has actually opened or kind of helped in, busting some of the myths around talent engagement, talent co-location, talent fulfillment, if you will. So there are a lot of organizations that have insisted on, locating talent together and kind of argued the value of the fact that bringing them together helps with collaboration and brainstorming. Obviously, as you can see in this forum, we're all remote and we're all sharing some really good suggestions and ideas and our insights. And I think that's the same case for the teams that are involved in, our initiatives as well. I certainly have learned that I don't need to have a team around me in my office space. And it's more about facilitating the right tools and the right settings for them to be able to continue to, do what they do best, which is build code and deploy. So it really depends on the situation. For a classic engineer or a developer, they could be in Hawaii for all I care, and they'd be still producing value. So it's actually been very innovative, and the industry has stepped up in true fashion and provided the right tools like Zoom and teams. I think we're going to see a new normal. The A team will look like a hub and spoke model, in my opinion, where teams that used to come to office every day it's going to be changed to a small central team that meets on some regular cadence or as needed to collaborate and design, and then they all disperse and the extended team is scattered around the world. It also helps us in finding talent that we couldn't originally approach or seek. For all you know, you may be able to find talent internationally for a US-based job. Who knows, right? So I think this enables us to kind of explore new options, look at more creative ways for finding good people that are already in short supply, right? So I'm keeping an open mind. I know that we're going to need more people coming out of this situation, and I'm really looking forward to being very creative about going and finding those people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm already seeing something very similar to what I experienced in 2008, and that is a growing demand for analytical talent. I would say it was pretty quiet for about a month and a half, but it always comes back to data. It always comes back to data. This continues to be an incredibly secure field to be in. So we talk about, I shouldn't say on-site talent anymore, but employee talent. Lokesh, what are you seeing from your perspective as a service provider? What are you seeing? What trends are you seeing for the use of consulting firms? I can see, we talk a lot about bringing on expertise that an organization may not have itself, but also staff augmentation. What are you seeing, and what can you share with the audience about what your clients are thinking about too?
So I'll give you a quick overview about what we see and what we have been doing across the ecosystem. As a niche data analytics solutions provider, we have helped our customers leverage data to build these products internally and leverage them for business values. And what we are seeing a trend is typically most of the Fortune 1000 enterprises are stuck with old IT service vendors who are great in what they do, but when it comes to data science and engineering, companies like us, which are a little bit niche and focused in this space, are able to outperform. And given our experience and expertise, we have been able to reduce the time to market by about 30 to 40%. And also a lot of failure rates in projects that we have seen, we have been able to bring it down because we've come in with a different technology, people, and process to deliver these to our customers. I can give you a few examples, one of the large CPG customers wanted to accelerate their efforts around COVID analytics as the pandemic struck in March. And we really developed a comprehensive data war room in just 3 to 4 weeks, using our experience in delivering similar solutions, which may have taken maybe months if done internally or find the right solution to that. So what we are seeing is, again, company to company, it varies, but we have been able to deliver very tangible business value from our perspective and accelerate not just solution building, but also help them build these data orgs with right practices and right technology. And also the technology landscape is evolving so fast in this space. Using a vendor like us, we have helped customers basically leverage the best technology out there so that they can leapfrog into a data-driven world.
Excellent. We've got lots of audience questions. I'm going to shift, if I can, I'm going to pivot, and I'm not going to assign these questions out to anyone. So jump on them. They're really some great questions. A couple of the ones that we actually got even before we started, people who were already thinking about the topic. And there's one in particular that I think is a very thoughtful question. When investing in data initiatives, do you see a usual preference for projects with a clear and strong social or environmental impact? So have any of you started to see, I think that's especially timely given that, at least here in the US, the social unrest that we have experienced and are continuing to experience. Is any of you seeing or thinking about data initiatives that are really focused on social and environmental impact?
I'll take that. I think one thing which is definitely coming up is this: you look at the area of people analytics, and you look at the whole area of diversity and inclusion. I think that there's certainly, over the last couple of years, and I think the trend is definitely going to accelerate, is there's going to be a lot more analysis of what's being done in terms of diversity, looking at what is the nature and composition of the workforce along the dimensions of diversity and inclusion, in terms of both who's being hired, career velocities. So I think that, people analytics and HR analytics is an area which is rapidly growing, and I expect to see a lot more activity in this area.
Mm-hmm. The couple of things that I have seen that I've been interested in, first of all, I've seen an uptick in interest from the healthcare industry, sort of on all three fronts, right? You've got the payer, you've got the payee, and then you've got the doctor-patient health outcome sort of stream as well. The other, I think that's interesting that I've heard some discussion about is access to capital. And the difference in, just like health outcomes, the difference in access to capital that African Americans and other people with darker skin often have in this country, just less access to capital. So how do we start to address things like that? So I suspect we will hear more about that, and I suspect there will be somebody out there, some innovative startup that says, I can find a way to help people and make money in the process.
Good idea. I'm writing that down. Thanks, Kathleen.
Great. So another culture question, which I love: how do you convince businesses, some of which are suffering from the COVID situation, others who are benefiting from the COVID situation, that data and analytics is a smart and immediate investment, even for both of these groups that have very, very different experience right now, those that are growing wildly and those that are really suffering, that it is an equally important investment for both of them? How do you convince people of that?
Let me take a stab at that. So in my mind, I think this may have been accentuated because of the current situation, but businesses have always struggled with using data to kind of prove how they're valuable, where they should focus, and where they should focus their energies and investments, right? In the current scenario, I think data can certainly help, because again, every business has a customer and a desired outcome. And at least from my perspective, what you need to be doing is looking at use data to show how you were doing before and how you're doing now, and trying to use the data to dig in and see where the gap is, if it exists. And if you're doing really well, then dig in and find out how you got there and continue to do more of the same. At least that's my perspective.
And I probably tag along here. There is always evidence. I mean, you don't walk in cold into a meeting. You walk in with some level of information that you have. You've done your analysis, your due diligence, whether it's data science models or even simple data sets. This is what I found out. This is how I could have helped you, or a team could have helped you. And these are the things you should invest in. Now, this is just and it doesn't cost much to do a POC. It doesn't cost much to do some basic analysis. And everyone is, these days, every business unit they have their own set of data scientists or citizen data scientists who are data savvy. And they would appreciate that aspect and say, yep, this makes sense. Now, how do I? The simple answer could be, I don't put it in my annual budget this year, so I can't give it. That's a standard answer. But if we have enough information and backing and forceful enough with our thought process, people are creative to find the money to get these things done, especially if they're going to see the critical things. Nobody wants to wait 6, 9 months, 12 months to see the ROI. Everyone wants to see instant gratification of these things, quick rewards. How do I do that? So we have, as data people, we have to provide that view into making this a quick success, and then showing a long-term path, a roadmap of what else can we do. And that's how you win hearts and win money in the process.
I agree. Yeah, go ahead, Lokesh.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with both the comments. Like in our case, it's basically the COVID situation actually has accelerated our advances in data analytics. It's basically how do we solve 60-70% of our call volume remotely without having to dispatch a technician, right? Because obviously we are in essential services business. If we can resolve an issue even without rolling a truck, without sending a tech to the site, if we can resolve it through our remote monitoring technology, using data, using contextual information that we already have, so much better it is. So it is basically getting the technicians here on the same page as, okay, the technology is actually augmenting your job. It's helping you to do your job better and get that early buy-in. And then, once that is there, it kind of institutionalizes the transformation process, and we'll get a lot more buy-in.
I think what we have seen and what Prabhu mentioned, smaller POCs, even what we have seen discovery workshop where we have been engaged with customers to scope the problem out and prove out what would be the value or will they get out of the project in a time frame and the investment that they make. That has been really helpful for business to prioritize and do the investments appropriately. We have been able to scope out the problem and the benefit and look at the model that we build or the solution that we build, what's the ROI will that cater to, and spending about 2 to 3 weeks bringing all the business, IT, and technology leaders together to scope the problem out has really helped out, making sure the investments are being made correctly, and if they're moving away in priority, they can have at least an option in hand on what is the outcome they could achieve with that investment. So I think bringing the technology, IT, and business on a same page and run them through what the business outcome they can expect if they were to make the investment, and then it takes about 2 to 3 weeks. But before making any dollar commitment, it really clears out what is the gain that they will see in this project. And we have done that with various customers, and that has been really, really helpful to align them, or even at times see that data is not available for them to build a resilient model, so they may have to wait or instrument those before this spark on a journey on this one.
Yeah, and again, this is a question that I absolutely love. I could talk for 45 minutes on this question alone, because this question is the job, right? How do I demonstrate that what I do matters to the business? And so I think, again, it's worth remembering this is a culture question. This is not a switch that goes from off to on. This is, a process that is repeated. It is a journey. Every time I am able to do something for the business, it is absolutely critical that I measure the value that was provided. And, so the business can see, not for my benefit, but for theirs. Because when they see, oh, I was able to do twice as much as I thought I would because you gave me the tools I needed to make better guesses about where to point whatever investment. And, when they see that they're winning over and over, that is when it really starts to generate. In fact, I prefer funding my teams, growing my teams through direct funding from a business leader. So when that business leader says, I want you to do this thing, I say, great, you need to pay for the resources. And so it becomes, instead of always feeling like there's too much to do, it is much more about, I can do this for you if you're willing to make the investment. And once they see the benefit that comes with it, that's actually a pretty easy conversation, but it takes time. It takes time to get there. It's not easy. It's easy to answer the question. It's a lot harder to do it. I'll ask another question. We do have a few more coming in. So Lokesh, you need to give me the signal when I need to slow down. I'm watching the clock, but not too carefully.
We have 10 more minutes, so we can go ahead.
Okay, so one more question at least. I think this is another great one. How do you establish governance that balances data stewardship with democratization of data? What is that right balance, and how do you hold people to it? Who wants that one?
I can take that, Kathleen.
Great.
I work very closely with the governance and democratization of both sides. People don't like the word governance when you just give it to them. So they feel their hands are tied and tell them not to do. And particularly, I think one of the questions was earlier about shadow IT. People have been doing this because IT or data teams have not been helping. Businesses have evolved these processes and tools on their own. So all of a sudden you bring police and say, no, we're going to govern this data. You can't get this thing. There's going to be tremendous pushback. So the simple thing is, how do you centralize this data? Hey, you will get access to all this data. We will have to put this in the environment. These are the benefits of putting the central environment, the data lake or what, a warehouse, name it what. You bring it there. We will support the data coming in at the prescribed SLA. So you don't need to worry about the data mining part. You just need to worry about the analysis part. Step 2, what are the things that you have to do to ensure you're in compliance? You always have the audit and compliance folks on your case. You can use them as levers here to say, this is what they suggest. Hey, it's great that you have these insights, but we should put them in a central platform, a little stricter platform for you to continue doing the work so that others don't get access to this information, or people who are not supposed to get access. And then slowly you actually establish a data council, bring leaders into the picture, and get everyone's buy-in. That's when you kind of prep your peers or the worker bees, so to say. And then now that you've set the stage, you go to the council and say, leaders, this is what we have seen. This is how we're going to implement. We're looking to implement. So then it becomes a conversation. Okay, great, data governance. What else are you going to do from the governance standpoint? Or we're going to set who gets what, who gets to see what data, where each data. We track the lineage of data coming in and data going out. And they say, hey, don't worry, if it is all cataloged in one place, tomorrow you get to see. Even if I leave, that information is there. So you bring some comfort around the governance, just not throw the word governance. If you do that, the first thing is, I don't want anything. I know what I'm doing. That's my feeling.
Great. There's another question. Lokesh, do we have time for one more, or should we move to wrap up?
I think we can take one more, and I think we have 10 more minutes to go.
Okay. So I think this is a great question for anybody, but Lokesh, you may have some particularly valuable insight for this question. How do you evaluate niche data consulting partners, and what are the top 3 things you look for? So I think it'd be great, Lokesh, to have your perspective on that, sort of our man on the inside.
No, I think I'm on the other side of the picture, so I'll give you what we have seen externally, but I would let people here talk that out, because what we have seen, people obviously evaluate different options and different partners on various factors, typically being the technology providers as being the first, can they solve the problem? And then they go into time and cost, etc. That has been our experience, but I would love to get an answer from the panel here. How do they go about evaluation and what they think? Because we are not.
So I agree. So I think I agree with Lokesh's point. I think the most important thing is that in this industry, we have a shortage of skilled talent. So I think rather than cost, it's always about differentiation, who you can bring to the table, who are the people who come and engage with you, and the quality of the engagement and the people you put on the project. I think that's the single largest thing which, makes a niche firm successful, when they can demonstrate their niche because their talent is superior. So I think the superiority of the talent and the quality of the talent is something which is very, very important.
And I would probably add on that. I seem to be talking a lot here, but niches, hey, I do only this. It's not like I also do this. So you see a lot of people saying, yeah, I do this, that, this, and this. No, I want you to only focus on that one. I'm not saying that that's your lines of business and how you operate, but to Kazi's point, if that is a focus, you're going to get the best talent. You're going to make sure they are trained. They're constantly upgrading the skills, keeping in times. They have either the industry vertical experience in line with the technology experience, or they have the depth in technology that they can come and solve any problem. You can know these people when you talk. So that is how you differentiate from I also want to be.
I mean, that's such a great point. I'm thinking about a time I had a conversation with a solution provider who specialized in, and it was a list of 50 different things. And I thought, I don't know that you can actually specialize in everything. Like, I think you specialize in a few things. So I think that's a great one. All right, well, I think we have really time just for our wrap-up question, which again, thinking about what we want to leave our audience with. This is for everyone, so I'll name you as we go. Haroon, I'll start with you, so listen closely. How do we position ourselves to take advantage of the eventual climb out of this economic solution? What situation? What can we do now so that we're really positioned well for the rise up?
Yeah. I mean, as we know, every company goes through their own transformation journey. Every company is probably at different stages of analytics journey. So the main thing is to understand where you are in that Gartner's ladder of analytics, right? Where you are. Are you, still doing descriptive analytics, or move from descriptive to diagnostic to predictive and prescriptive? Going from hindsight to insight to foresight. In our case, getting all the machine data and converting that into smart information, and then coming up with prescriptive analytics, and at the machine level, at the fleet level, ultimately at the industry and market level. So it's very important to understand where you are in that journey and try to, identify high impact but small projects, small successes. When you do small projects and that is successful, there is going to be a lot of adoption. So that's very important to start small and communicate those early successes. And most important thing is to understand what your goal is. Everybody talks about analytics, but what is your goal? That's the game is very specific to your company. In our case, the goal is to improve the service efficiencies of that, 1,000 technicians that we have. Give them that extra hour by automating, by using analytics to do their jobs better. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that translates into bottom line results. But it is important to understand what your goal in analytics is, and then try to achieve that goal, and then rest follows on its own when it comes to adoption. So that's my advice.
Prabhu, how about you? What would you say?
So a lot of the questions that we answered are actually giving us a thought process on how we're going to align ourselves for the rest of the year and leading into our planning for next year. So clearly the last 4 months was an evidence of how things are. Doesn't mean that it's going to be the same way. It still is, like somebody mentions, an evolving situation. But if we have started a journey and we are well entrenched in that journey, you've got to accelerate on certain areas to make sure you hit the right. I mean, you are there when your next year starts, or whenever this thing turns around, you position for success. In our case, retail is probably, you have to make sure your retail has enough information. You want to make sure your stores are ready to operate at full swing. They are around, but anything that can come out of it, there's a good chance we could go into recession, for example. How does that factor in people's buying patterns now versus then? This is an opportunity to start building those models and thinking of what are the areas we can focus on. I think from an initiative standpoint, most of those planning cycles are going in, and people have a clear view of where they're headed.
Kazi?
Sure. So I think as we look at the current situation, as we've mentioned earlier, while it's challenging for some sectors, it's actually been big growth. I mean, take Zoom, for example. I mean, if you look at how much all of us have used Zoom in our lives for the last couple of months, it's been having explosive growth. So I think to the points that the panelists have made earlier, while lots of things are specific to particular companies, I think there's some common trends that everyone should be, capitalizing on. One, if you're in a growth situation, or if you have clear projects where you will have demonstrated ROI, you should certainly, keep your foot on the gas and definitely keep those projects going full swing. Because if you have a whole bunch of new customers and you want to invest in a project around customer retention for new customers, you should certainly be doing something. I think that the other thing that we do know is that coronavirus came very suddenly, and depending upon when the vaccine comes or what the situation is, the recovery could happen pretty suddenly too. I think there's a huge risk that people might take, like whether it's reduction in forces or cutting projects. That if you go too deep on that dimension and then things start to recover, it's very, very difficult to kick off the hiring pipeline and suddenly say, hey, now I need bunch of people on board, or I did invest in the fundamental infrastructure and now I need it yesterday. So I think you need to be very judicious also about if you're slowing down, where exactly you slow down, because it's unclear when things are going to come back. I'd also say is that, there are lots of, one of the perpetual points about angst in the data world is the timeliness of data. I think given the need to be nimble, if there are projects around, you need to invest so that you're getting your data in a timely fashion so that you can make business decisions quicker. I think those projects are well worth investing in at this point of time.
That's a great point. Sangeeth, you get the final word.
All right. I think my co-panelists have shared some really wonderful insights. So there's not much to add. The only thing that I would think, and this is something we're doing within our company as well, is there's an element of retooling and reskilling. So now think of this as kind of the calm before the storm. There's going to be an explosion of demand. There's going to be an explosion of need for talent, but this is also a moment for reflection. I think some of us that are hunkered down now, waiting for us to come out of this, there's an opportunity for us to assess what our gaps are, internal, what our tech debt is, what our skills gap are, and then we can start putting plans to retool, retrain, reskill ourselves. And then, as we come out, then start running fast. So in addition to all those comments, that's one thing that I think would be very prudent.
Yeah.
And I would quickly add to that. I know you're on time. What we are seeing now is like a shift in consumer behavior. A lot of digitalization is happening. So a lot more data is available for people to leverage. And from a macro standpoint, I think the GDP contracted by 32% just today. The numbers are there. So now I think there's an upward curve from here, and the bottom is past us, is my take on the situation. And you'd see an improvement from here. But there's a shift in the behavior. The priorities would obviously change, and we are seeing that change in priorities across companies. A lot more e-commerce, a lot more digitalization, and that would initiate a different kind of use cases, either be it in QSRs being the delivery and drive-through, etc., coming in, a lot more e-commerce coming in. So we will see a shift in use cases for sure, and a lot more digital nature of business coming through, which will give them a lot more data sets to leverage for a lot of companies.
Excellent points. And I can't believe it. It's 3 o'clock already. We went right up to the wire. There are plenty of unanswered questions, and we apologize for that, but what a great discussion. Again, Lokesh, thanks for asking us to be here. Kazi, Haroon, Sangeeth, Prabhu, this was amazing discussion. Thank you all. I know that there is a request for a feedback survey. Lokesh, do you want to say a little more about that?
I think it would be great to get some feedback on this session. Everyone who's attending this, I've just posted the link for the form. If you could just fill that out, would be great to get your feedback. And also we'll be sending small gift for you to come in and join us for this session. Thanks a lot for everyone coming and joining us today, and all the panelists putting their time in this situation is a lot helpful for us and in the audience in general to get a glimpse of what's happening across the orgs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks for having
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.